Yeah, so it's always a big challenge going to Adelaide, playing Adelaide Oval, playing Port Adelaide. They've got a very parochial group of supporters and it's a very hostile environment. We didn't fare so well there last year in round one, which is still in our memories. But there's a lot at stake this week for them and for us, so it's a big game. And when you're in an interstate club and you go and play interstate, these, if you can get the win, it's almost like worth 2 wins in a sense. So looking forward to it, but know that it's a very big challenge. They're a well-coached team. They win a lot. They have done over the last 8 or 9 years under Ken, and they'll be well prepared for us, and we'll be well prepared for them.
Is there anything still relevant from that round one match last year that you look at, or is it too far?
Oh, it's a long time ago. Different people playing. You do have a look at, why did we lose that game and why did we win that qualifying final, and the differences there. So that's, been a topic of conversation this week. But you also have to look at what's going on currently. So it's a mixture of everything.
Normally when you look at games, say, in the past, it's kind of you put that to bed and move forward. What do you think it is about that game, about Port Adelaide, that you are reflecting on that?
Which game are you talking about? 'Cause I'm talking about both of them that we played last year. So I'm not.
Oh yeah, both of them. You know how normally because they do have new players coming in this year.
Yeah. Oh, it's just all just a normal part of your planning. You look at you definitely look at the last time you played an opposition team, and sometimes when you've played them more than once in the previous season, you'll look at both games. And of course, we won one of those and lost one of those, so it's sort of interesting to look at why do we lose and why do we win, and that helps you sort of come up with a plan for this week. But as I say, teams change and evolve a little bit too, so they're not completely the same as they were last year, and neither are we. So
does a lot of the homework, as it probably does most weeks, I'm sure, go to the midfield. It's where their best players are and where the players that generally do a lot of the damage come from. Yeah,
definitely their midfield and their rebounding defenders, I think, are really important to the way that they play. It's really clear the way that they play, and it's probably really clear to them the way that we play. So in many ways we're similar. We're territory size. We like to get the ball into our front half. We like to keep it in there. It's who can do that the best, and that's very much dependent on how well each midfield goes.
You talk about that hostile environment being down there at Adelaide Oval. Do you have to talk to the young players here at all about what to expect heading to Adelaide Oval?
No, most of our guys would have played there before. There'll be a few. I don't know that there's any that will play this week that haven't played there, because we had a game there not so long ago against Adelaide. So it's a similarly hostile environment when you play the Crows. So we've all of our young guys like a Logan Morris or a Bruce Reville have had that experience. So they should be ready for it.
It must feel nice you've had 2 wins, you've got a fairly settled team, there's no new injuries. It feels like that's been an anomaly this year.
Yeah, it has been. We've been pretty unstable, I guess, in some areas of our team, and it's been good, definitely, the last few weeks to get a settled lineup. We obviously won't have too many changes this week. Noah Answorth hurt his shoulder in the reserve, so he'll miss a little bit of time. He was our sub last week, so we potentially might only make the one change.
Your co-captain has a milestone this weekend. Harris Andrew, he's been here obviously the whole time you have. What does he mean to you specifically?
Oh, I could talk about Harris for half an hour probably, but to try and succinct it, he's a tremendous leader. He's a very self-motivated person, and he was from the day that I arrived. I think when I turned up he might have been 20 or 21, and it struck me straight away just how professional he was and how hard he worked at making himself into a player. And I look back on his career, and when he was a young 18, 19-year-old playing AFL footy, he was lining up on guys like Tom Hawkins at their peak. And he got a few touch-ups at early days, but he's turned himself into arguably the best tall defender that the game's seen in the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years. He's 2-time All-Australian and could have been maybe an All-Australian a few more times on top of that. And, you know, all that's due to his approach and his love for our footy club. And you know, there's nobody in this club more that wants to win than Harris Andrews, and that's the way he's always been. And he's one of those guys too that always has time for the fans. He's good to everyone around the place. He understands that footy's just not about the game, but it's about everybody involved in your club, and he's always been willing and able to give of his time to include fans and sponsors and supporters in all that he's done. So he always does that stuff with a smile on his face. So I've nearly gone for half an hour, so I probably should stop, but there's a lot of love from me to Harris.
He's only, we've all probably written this and spoken about him a bit. I sort of struggle to remember that he's only 27.
Yeah.
It feels like he's obviously got a long career still in front of him. Can he get better? Is that possible? Well,
he's always trying to get better, and obviously the game comes up with ways and means to try and negate players like Harris Andrews who can intercept mark. So, and that's probably been on the cards a little bit more around the competition this year than ever before, with, you know, Tom Stewart getting stopped a little bit and Luke Ryan getting stopped a little bit last week. So all clubs are looking into ways and means to try and negate the influence of these intercept markers. So finding the solution to that is probably the next evolution. Harris is onto that, you know, and works really hard at it. But no, like, you know, I think one thing he's got better at over time is once he wins the ball, his use of it's really gotten better. And for a bloke who's an intercept marker, that's what you want him to be able to use the ball well once he wins it. So he's worked really hard at that part of his game. But he never lets anything slip, and he's got a growth mindset. So I think he'll continue to improve.
Well, Ashcroft is nearing a return as well. How nice will it be to be able to see him come back in?
Yeah, so at this stage he's expected to be available next week, so it's going to be an interesting selection dilemma. I mean, I hold Will in the highest regard, as do his teammates, and you know, we're fortunate enough to have his brother coming along next year as well. So Collingwood have got the Dacosses and we've got the Ashcrofts, and you know, it's going to be it's going to be great to have him available again, and we'll just see you know, what that looks like when we get to next week.
Would you like to see him have a few runs in the twos before he comes back into the senior side?
Not necessarily. I've got an open mind to that. I mean, you know, we bought Cam Raider after his knee, albeit he had a pre-season, I guess, but he came straight back in. Eric Hipwood came straight back in. You know, the way that our medical staff and our fitness staff condition these guys to play, they're not conditioned to sort of be good enough to come back and play half a game in the reserves as a build-up. They're conditioned well enough to be ready to play AFL footy if required. So we know that Will's in that space. We just got to make a decision, and it's too early to make that call because we haven't played this weekend yet. We don't know if we're going to get injuries. We don't know what the form's going to be like. So there's so many what-ifs and maybes. But a player of his ilk is very much capable of coming straight back into the team.
He's pretty quiet, sort of young fella. What have you seen from him the last couple of weeks as it's become apparent that he's getting closer to returning?
Yeah, well, I'm a big observer of behaviours, so I've noticed he's hanging around the assistant coaches a bit more, starting to watch vision a little bit more, reminding them that he's about to come back. He's a bit noisier out on the track, all understandable, I guess, but because he's got a huge desire to play and to play well, so only natural that he would be like that around the place. But pretty quiet early days, but getting noisier every week.
Have you had to tell him what, you know, you've still got a few weeks, calm down a little bit?
I think early days he was really impatient to get back as quickly as he could, and then he realised that, you know, with these sorts of situations, you just got to go by how the knee's responding to training. And early days he had a little bit of a problem because he kept getting swelling, and that's just nature's way of telling you you're not ready to take the next step yet. And so I think once he got through that period, he understood that it was just however long it took, not to get too stressed about that and just relaxed and enjoy the process. So that's what he's done. And I reckon he'll come back a better player just because he's been able to observe what goes on in the footy club for the last 12 months and take a few more things in.